your socks! Hey!
The Lost Art with Andrew Cox podcast, now streaming on all major podcast platforms. A Till Valhalla Project ambassador. Thanks for tuning in to the podcast that's given a voice to our veterans. The Lost Art with Andrew Cox. Tun Tavern, birthplace of the Corps. We as Marines hold this history close to our hearts. Wouldn't it be spectacular if the establishment was born again? The Tun Legacy Foundation, a nonprofit 501c3, is taking the task and is looking to the Marines to once again save the day. Help the Lost Art podcast in raising funds to help get the Tun built once again only 100 yards from the original establishment in Philadelphia. We are looking for Marines to donate $25 representing the upcoming 250th birthday of the Corps. Spread the message and help establish the Tun, a place for Marine brethren to gather and remember our historic beginning. Go to the Lost Art GoFundMe page and donate today. The Tun Legacy Foundation, reestablishing our birthplace. Hello, my friends, and welcome back to the Lost Art podcast. That podcast giving a voice to our veterans. I'm your host, Andrew Cox, and today we're having a fireside chat with a special guest. We have Pat Dailey from the Tun Legacy Foundation. I had to look over to make sure I said it right, but the Tun Legacy Foundation. He's going to be on here to talk about that. It's going to be fantastic. I'm looking forward to it. But if you're enjoying these podcasts, make sure you go to the website. That's thelostart.podbean.com. Go check it out. See what we got going on there. There is a merchandise tab. Click on that merchandise tab. Get you a cool hat, get you a shirt, get you a cup, get you something cool. Help support us and getting our veteran voices out for all to hear. Also, a big shout out to the Till Valhalla Project, all the amazing work that they got going on. I thank them for allowing me to be an ambassador for that great organization. If you don't know anything about them, go to their website. That's tillvalhallaproject.com. Go check it out. And if there's any way you can help them out, please do so. All right, with that, I got Mark here and I got Pat here. We'll start with Mark. Mark, how you doing?
I'm doing outstanding, Andrew. It's beautiful weather here in Southern California. And again, if it wasn't for the politicians, politics, taxes, and prices, this would be a virtual paradise.
Yeah, you got to be careful now, Mark. We don't want you to get cut off by your governor out there. So be careful.
Old Gavin's going to cut me off again.
Never fails.
Yeah.
All right. Awesome.
Pat on it.
Yeah. Pat, Mark has a history of aggravating the California political climate.
No.
So he gets on here and he may voice an opinion or two. And it seems that they have a guy. They know when we're recording. He has a button. He hits it as soon as he starts talking and cuts him out.
And it cuts me off. It's. I could go the entire day with my computer online. I get on this podcast with Andrew, and I say something about California politics, and boom, my internet gets cut off.
Yeah, it's very interesting for sure. Yeah. Well, we got Pat here. Pat, your organization, the Tun Legacy Foundation, that's kind of what you're here for. So how are you doing?
Good. I'm doing well. It's finally rained here in Philadelphia. We had about 6 weeks of no rain, starting to look like
wow,
the Sahara here. Yeah, it was. People get a little concerned, but it rains pretty good today, and it's supposed to rain tomorrow. So that helps.
Very nice.
Is it still raining illegal votes?
No. No, it's not.
Oh my God.
They said they were still counting from the election.
No, nothing illegal going on here. It's all very much above board.
I like it. All right. Well, hey, Pat, can you just give us kind of a little background on yourself, right? A veteran Marine, kind of give us a history, a little bit about your service, and then let's get in after that into the organization itself.
Sure. Well, as I joined the Marine, I tried out. People say they they join the Marine Corps. As you well know, you don't join the Marine Corps; you try out for the Marine Corps.
Yeah.
So I tried out in officer candidate school. A little over 40% of the guys I tried out with didn't finish, so it was indeed a tryout. Probably the most physical thing I've ever had to do. And I went to the Marines because they scared me the most, to be honest. The other services told me absolutely what size, coat do you wear? We'll get your uniform and get you set up. And the Marine Corps was more about, well, you can see if you can make it, and then we'll talk about uniforms. So,
Yeah.
So I spent a summer down in Quantico, Virginia, and it was life changing, as you well know. I went through, it's called OCC, which is really with a bunch of prior enlisted guys.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And all range of E3s through E8s, I think.
Wow.
So that was good going through with guys who knew the Marine Corps up, backwards and forwards. So that helped with my education and all of our education. So it was a really good group, and I got my MOS assigned to me, which was a supply officer. You do what the Marine Corps tells you to, and they decided they needed supply officers.
Yeah.
I spent the first year of my career overseas in Camp Hansen in Okinawa, and really enjoyed my time there, and wound up staying there for 4 years, pretty much my entire career. 2 with 3rd Division, 9th Marines, and 2 with the wing down with the Marine Air Support Squadron 2 in Futenma.
Okay.
Got to see quite a lot of Asia, all over Japan, Korea, Philippines, Saipan. So it was a good experience. I met a wonderful woman there who I convinced to marry me, and I spoke Japanese, so she did not speak English when I met her, but got married there. And my next duty station was going to be Camp Pendleton, and probably deployed a lot, so I figured that was not a good place to leave someone who didn't really speak much English.
Yeah,
So
that makes sense.
I exited the Marine Corps and started civilian life, but it always stays with you. And I raised a couple kids. My daughter's very successful lieutenant colonel in the Air Force, and
oh wow,
she has her mother's brains, thankfully. She's doing very well. I can't really say what she does, but it's secretive things.
Yeah.
And then our son is also doing very well. They both speak Japanese, and so after probably 20 years of really not being associated with things Marine, except the occasional guy I'd run into, I got approached by someone to help out with the Marine Corps Scholarship Foundation here in Philadelphia, the chapter here. So I started going to meetings there, and started going to a tavern in South Philadelphia, in sort of the warehouse residential district of Philadelphia, called Cookies Tavern. All Marines in Philly know Cookies Tavern, and they would have a Marine Corps celebration every November 10th. A little, 11-seat bar at the end of a bunch of rough roads. You could never get in the bar because about 3,000 Marines would show up there every November 10th. Wow! So one November, standing there in the rain, eating cake and drinking beer with 3,000 of my closest friends, and but this is crazy. If Tun Tavern were here, what would these guys do? Yeah. And so I started looking into it, did some research for about 7 years, studied the history of Tun Tavern and where it was and why it was not there anymore. Learned an awful lot about the tavern, a lot more connections than just the Marine Corps.
I did notice that on your website that let's see, I wrote down a couple of them here, but the St. Andrew's Society, Sons of St. Patrick, the Freemasons, those were all organizations that met at Tun Tavern. Yeah, and they predate the Marine Corps by some of them by 50 years. Yeah. So
I'm a member of the San Diego St. Patrick's Friendly Sons of St. Patrick's.
Are you really?
And the past president. And the past president of San Diego.
Oh, okay. Yeah, Philadelphia was the first chapter of that organization.
Correct. Yeah.
And I have their actual documents. They have copies of it, or they have the originals, the ledger book, and they met in Mullen's Tavern. Well, there's that name Mullen.
Right.
You may remember Robert Mullen. Yep.
Yeah.
So Tun Tavern at some point was called Mullen's Tavern. It was also called Peg Mullen's Beefsteak Club. It often took on the name of the proprietor, even before the Mullen family. But it was, it's like calling the White House the Executive Mansion. It's still the White House. So
yeah,
that it was always called Tun Tavern.
Right.
So the newspapers of the time still referred to it as Tun Tavern. But yeah, it was quite the place. I think it was probably large as taverns of the time go. I mean, often in Philadelphia, they would just repurpose a house and make it a tavern.
Right.
I think this was probably maybe started construction as a house, but finished construction as what we call microbrewery now. Joshua Carpenter brewed beer in Tun Tavern, and he was apparently so good at what he was doing at brewing beer that he opted to get out of the tavern business and more into the brewing business. So he sublet Tun Tavern out to someone who would run it, and he brewed the beer, and then he and his brother founded 2 more taverns, and he had outlets for his beer, and he died actually a very wealthy man. Quite the brewer in colonial Philadelphia in the late 1600s, early 1700s. So
wow.
But it occurred to me that with all the history in this place, we could do a lot of good with the popularity of a resurrected Tun Tavern. And so I looked at, what's the best way to do this? And I thought, why not do some good with the money and start a nonprofit? So essentially, I started a nonprofit organization, the Tun Legacy Foundation. And it's in our charter that all of the money the Tun raises in profits, we will donate to charities, mostly for veteran charities, but some Masonic charities like Shriners Hospitals and educational charities from the Three Saints organizations. So this is a full-on nonprofit. All the money this thing raises by operational revenues will donate to veteran charities.
Wow,
that's awesome.
That's incredible.
Well, it's the right thing to do, I think.
Yeah, for sure. I love what you're doing with that. That's incredible.
Well, and I get that a lot. Thanks for doing what you're doing. I need to correct that. I'm not doing it. I don't have the money to build this place. What we've done is we've set it up so that Marines can together we can build this place.
Right.
So the donations through our websites, we're buying some of our swag. It all helps, and we've had some Marines step in very generously with 7-figure donations who really believe in the project. Yeah, not a lot of them, but we're looking for more of them. But we don't refuse 6-figure donations either.
Yeah.
But this is because of where it is. This is an expensive project, and how expensive could it be to build a tavern? Well, there's laws now that if we looked at the historic Tun Tavern drawing or the image that we all know,
right,
you really can't get more than 42 or 43 people in that place legally.
Right.
So what we're building is the tavern that we're all familiar with, and then behind it, sort of like a small atrium adjoining place we're calling a museum, and then a much larger 2-story warehouse place, and that will be Peg Mullen's Beefsteak Club.
Ah, very nice.
So Peg Mullen's Beefsteak Club was the place to eat in colonial Philadelphia in the 1740s through 1770s. Continental Congress used to rave about the amount of food that you could get at Peg Mullen's.
Nice.
In fact, when George Washington was elected to lead the Continental forces against the British, they did their huzzas there at Independence Hall, and then they adjourned to Peg Mullen's Beefsteak Club for his dinner.
No kidding. Wow.
Yeah. So
there's so much history there. It's incredible,
It's the first Masonic lodge in North America was the Tun Tavern Lodge. So
no kidding.
Freemasons are not organized like most things. Freemasons are independent state by state. So it's the birthplace
okay.
of Pennsylvania Freemasonry. But it is they can prove that it was the oldest lodge on record. There are said to have been lodges before this, but there's no written evidence of it. They actually have in the Masonic Museum here in Philadelphia, they actually have the ledger book from the Tun Tavern Lodge that shows who was there. So
wow,
pretty impressive. Yeah, from 1730s.
Good night. That is amazing.
Ben Franklin was the Grand Master twice. So Ben Franklin
of
was
that
a
specific
regular.
lodge.
Yep, he was a regular at Tun Tavern.
Amazing.
Wow.
So we are calling our venture the Tun for legal reasons. We don't own the name Tun Tavern, so that's
right.
So the Tun is what we are, and historically, that's what it was often referred to. It's just easier to say, I suppose. So you do see it referred to that in some historical records as the Tun.
Right.
So we have trademarked the name the Tun, and that's where we're going.
Very nice. And now, when it comes to you're raising the funds for it, I noticed on the website you could go in and there's like a link or whatever to be able to donate money directly to the foundation and stuff like that.
Right.
What are some of the ways that people are donating for you guys?
Some people just give us a straight, donation of cash, and that's great. But there's ways that people can leave a legacy. For example, we have a couple of different tankards that you can purchase. Let's start at the top one. For $2,500, you will get a handmade copper 32-ounce copper tankard that is modeled after the actual tankards available in Pennsylvania in the early 1700s.
Wow.
Made by a coppersmith in Wisconsin, one at a time, about 4 hours of hammering copper. And they actually hammer your name into it. It's not a machine. It's all done one at a time with individual punches. But they'll put your name and whatever second line you want on there. So for $2,500, that gets displayed, unless you want it at home, that is displayed permanently at the Tun in a locked, lighted glass case that line the walls. And when you come in, you drink for free.
No kidding. Wow.
Well, it's your investment and your legacy, and we will allow you to hand that mug down to, another person, say a son or a grandson or whatnot. The other way you can contribute is to buy a $1,000 copper mug, slightly smaller one. Again, your name is on the bottom of it, and they hang from the rafters of the Tun.
We got it.
That's awesome.
And then if you want a tankard, you can take home and keep at home. We do have a wooden.
Legally part.
Thanks, guys.
He's dropping his granddaughter off. Yes.
Sorry about that. I'm going to try to mute real quick.
That's right.
No problem, Mark.
So we do have a wood tankard that is it's actually made in Ukraine by a carpenter who he's had to move his shop twice because of the action over there. But he's in a safe place now. So we get shipments of tankards from him. They're all handmade.
Yeah.
Your name is on the bottom of that, but that lives with you at home.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So that's a cheaper alternative. And we have nice polo shirts that have Son of the Tun on it.
Okay.
So you can join Son of the Tun. It'd be a Son of the Tun. And that's not just for Marines. That's for any of the 6 organizations with a heritage.
Right.
The Tun. So they all look different. The Marine version is red. It has an eagle globe and anchor on it. But the Masonic one has the Masonic symbol and it's blue.
Oh, okay.
The St. Patrick's has the St. Patrick logo on it. And of course, it's green. And so on and so forth.
That's really good.
We let's see. You can also buy a brick. We are recreating Tun Alley because the tavern stood at the corner of Water Street and Tun Alley. Tun Alley was a little cartway that they used to access the Delaware River from Philadelphia. William Penn stipulated there had to be access for the public to use. So it's about 11-foot wide alley, and so we're recreating that up to the front, off to the side of the tavern, but and there we are putting bricks in the ground that are have names etched into them. With
how much are the bricks? How much are the bricks for that?
The bricks are $500.
Okay.
And they are permanently placed in the ground.
Mm-hmm.
It's a limited supply of those. I think we can do a little over 600 of them. So
wow.
They're selling very well. And sometimes it's entire units buy a brick. Sometimes it's a Marine Corps League chapter. Sometimes it's just a guy.
Right.
Sometimes people buy it for the grandfather or whatnot.
Mm-hmm.
Excuse me. You can also buy a framed miniature brick that represents a brick used in the reconstruction of the Tun.
Okay.
It's an exact, dimensionally a miniaturized brick. And that also has your name and 4 lines of text etched on that. It's framed in a box frame with a certificate, and it's actually quite nice. That's $750, but that's a really nice gift to present to someone, especially a Marine or a Freemason.
Wow.
Yeah, for sure. That is really
then we
cool.
have T-shirts, and you can just join Son of the Ton if you want. You'll get a little certificate in the mail from us.
Mm-hmm.
There's a number of things, and we'll come up with more things as well. But I'm trying to give people some sort of satisfaction for a donation. We realize the stuff's expensive because this is fundraising. It's we're not selling them at 10% profit for sure.
Yeah.
We're trying to build a $18 million building here. So.
Yeah, absolutely.
But,
that is outstanding.
But we do own the land. We raised a little over $4 million, and we purchased the land. That's never been done before. So we own the land that it's going on.
Okay.
It's about 200 meters from the original location. The original location is under Interstate 95, unfortunately, and they won't stop the traffic long enough for us to snap chalk lines there. So
that makes sense. Yeah.
But
it was inconsiderate.
Yes.
Yeah, exactly.
Inconsiderate is right.
But it is a really historic section of Philadelphia. Excuse me. The little alley next to that borders our property is called Black Horse Alley. That has been there since the 1600s. It still has the cobblestones in it. One of these little hidden alleys that are all over Philadelphia.
Wow.
So you can still see the wagon ruts in the cobblestones. It's pretty entertaining.
No kidding. Wow.
Yeah, pretty cool.
So do you have any type of like a VIP price to be at the opening ceremony? I mean,
well, no, it's if you want to come, please come.
Right. But aren't you going to have like a VIP section that people can pay for that's another fundraising option.
Well, yeah, by then we're going to have had all the money by then. But that's an idea. We are holding an auction, probably be online in the next month or so, for a bidding auction for the first beer at Tun Tavern.
Oh, nice.
Nice.
The first beer at the Tun, I should say.
Yeah. And how the naval tradition about a plank owner of something. Are you going to have that?
Yeah, we do have plank owners. We're finalizing the certificate now. So for $10,000, you can be a plank owner of the Tun.
Well,
and that'll get you a complimentary bottle of wine, special service for dinner, special table settings, that sort of thing, and a really nice couple of shirts that identify you as a plank owner, and of course your name on a bronze plaque on the wall.
Yeah. Well, hey, Pat, Mark and I, we're lowly enlisted folk, so you have to excuse us for that. But Mark actually came up with this idea. We want to help contribute to what you guys got going on. So now, Mark, you want to kind of tell him what we're going to try and do there?
Well, see, we got figured out. Like I said, people want to donate and people want to do stuff, but like I said, like Andrew said, our pockets aren't that deep. But we figured if we could come up with something, whether it's a donation or a purchase, something for $17.75.
Yeah, we actually are talking about. We did the math and figured out if every living, breathing Marine right now contributed $10, we'd be able to fund this thing.
Well, that's $17.75. If they can do $10, they can do $17.75.
We were thinking about
Absolutely.
the 1110 club, but I like the 1775 club even better.
All right.
So what?
We
Yeah,
were
go
trying
ahead,
to
Mark.
figure out like how we can have people do that, either purchase something for 1775 or donate 1775 and collect that all up and then get it to you somehow.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean, we have we call the Tun Militia, where
Mhm.
we have people in different locations around the country who do fundraisers, for the little beef and beers or whatever they want to do to raise money. We'll send them a bunch of T-shirts in a box and some coins and maybe a mug to chance off or something. But yeah, you could join. You could start a Ton Militia group wherever you are, and
All right.
just have a party and send the proceeds to us.
So
Sounds
because
awesome.
out here in San Diego, we have the Veterans Beer Club,
Ah, all right.
and it was started by a Marine. I probably get a hold of him, and because that's something he definitely organized, because they got a huge group. It's for all veterans, of course, but there's a lot of Marines in this group.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. No, that would work. And we in the history, a lot of what I learned about the history of this tavern and the collateral information along with that, in the English colonies in the 16 and 1700s, it surprisingly was not the English shilling, which was the most common currency. The most common currency was the Spanish 8 real coin. It looked like a
Really?
silver dollar.
Mm.
Yep. So it was so common that's what Hamilton used when he designed the American silver dollar. The 8 real
Wow.
coin was his model because of the consistency of the silver. So these coins were, the
Wow.
silver was mined in Central America, and
Yeah.
these coins, I guess, minted in. Well, I'm not sure if they're minted there or whatever, but that's why the Spanish galleons were the target of pirates for all the silver coming out of Central and South America. So what's interesting about this coin is when someone paid for something with a 8 real coin, it's about like a silver dollar, and you had to make change. People just, to them, it was just a silver disc. They didn't really care what country it came from. So they cut it up like a pizza. So they
No
would
kidding.
cut it, and that's where the phrase "pieces of 8" comes from. It's the 8 real
Really?
coin chopped up like a pizza. So
Huh.
they would divide it into 8 pieces, and 2 pieces of the 8 real coin were about a quarter, 25 cents. So that's where the
Wow.
phrase 2 bits comes from.
Huh.
Bits.
Two
So
That's
bits,
wild.
6 bits, 8 bits, a dollar.
that's
Yeah.
it. That's from the 8 real Spanish coin.
I'll be dang.
So and the Treasure Island pieces of 8. That's where that comes from.
Man,
So
that's
so
cool.
so when someone offers to buy someone a beer at the Ton, that's the coin that we slap down on the bar in front of you. On one side, it's an actual 8 real coin copy from 1693. On the other side is the logo for the Ton. So
No
And I
kidding.
missed it. How much are those? How much are those coins?
if you were to buy one, it's probably about $5. But
Okay.
if you remember the 1775 club, we'll send you one.
Got it.
Huh.
So do you know he's a Pennsylvania native Marine officer, Brian Henry?
I've heard that name.
Because he's always talking about this organization, and he's trying to organize a trip of 3-1 officers from the Desert Storm era to go out there for it.
Oh, all right. Yeah, we just had our groundbreaking on November 10th, and we had about 3,000 Marines here.
Not only did you have 3,000 Marines, you had some pretty substantial Marines that showed up. You had the Drum and Bugle Corps there as well.
Yep.
It was a big ordeal.
It was really nice. The Drum and Bugle Corps, they were great guys. I mean, and I don't know if you've ever tried to get the Drum and Bugle Corps for anything. We used to try to get them for the Scholarship Foundation, black tie.
Yeah.
And you need to reserve them like 2 years in advance. So one of our board members, he's a Marine, says, well, I have the phone number for the guy at the Drum Bugle Corps. I'll call him. I said, what are you kidding? It's August. I mean, this party's in November. They're not coming to Philly for a bar, groundbreaking. But he called, and they literally said, oh, thank God you called. We were hoping you were going to call us. So
Nice.
they were going to New York, and for the Marine Corps birthday ball up in New York.
Yeah.
So they stopped in Philly for a day, and
That's awesome.
they got on their way about 3 o'clock in the afternoon. Went up to New York, and I saw them because I was invited to the ball in New York, so I went up there, and
Oh, nice.
the warrant officer pulled me aside. He said, "Your party was much better." So, because they got to get out of uniform and drink beer with other Marines and whatnot. So
Yeah.
it was a good time. They're a great bunch of guys.
So, and you probably don't know this. We haven't ever met before this, but I was in the band, like the fleet bands.
Oh,
That was my job. So I was a drum major for a long time.
wow.
But
Right.
I know a lot of those guys at the DMB.
Okay.
From my or at least my era of guys that were there.
Right.
So it's pretty wild. And I saw that on I think their Facebook and stuff. They had them playing there for the opening and
Yeah.
stuff. It was really cool.
It was great. They were sensational. In fact, I played in a high school band that was very big in Philadelphia and way back. But we were like, state champions and whatnot. And I still keep in touch with the guys from high school, and a lot of them are professional musicians now.
Oh, wow.
One of them showed up, and he was recording the D&B, but you couldn't see them; you could just hear them. And the guy who writes Broadway, charts up in New York, he said, "Who's that band? That's the most in tune band I've ever heard in my life." I said, they're just Marines."
Yeah. I will tell you that the drum and bugle corps has come a long ways over the years.
They were so impressive.
In what the product that they did, when I came in, right, to where they are today is completely different, and they sound incredible now.
They are absolutely sensational, and you could just see it in the crowd. It's like people were not expecting that quality of performance, and they were so impressive. So
yeah, absolutely.
And then we weren't sure they were coming, so I had booked a band that's a tradition here in Philadelphia on New Year's Day. It's a lot like Mardi Gras here in Philly on New Year's Day. They're called mummers. So mummers are a British tradition, and in the time of the original Tun Tavern, there were mummers here in Philadelphia. Essentially, they were people who would go out and shoot their guns off in the streets and drink and just sing and play instruments or whatever, just enjoying the new year. And so the city here in Philadelphia,
that's my kind of band right there. Yeah, I like that.
After a while, the city said, this shooting guns in the air is probably not in the best interest of everyone. So, so they organized these string bands. And so if you Google, a mummer string band, you'll see what these bands are. And it's like the Mardi Gras clubs. They all compete every year in the New Year's Day parade for prize money. So I hired one of them. It's about 30, 40 guys. They marched up the street in full costume. So you'll see them on the website also.
Very nice.
It was a kind of a taste of Philadelphia there's a lot of out-of-towners came up for this. So it was good.
Now, how many people would you say was there for the actual groundbreaking?
Probably about 3,000.
Okay.
It was all outdoors, so people would come and go through the course of the day. But we ran out of beer. We went through about 30 half kegs of beer. So about 30 kegs. Yeah, and we were not expecting to run all day with that, but that was in about 6 hours worth of drinking.
Wow. Yeah. Well, give it to the Marines; they'll take care of it.
Yeah, they did indeed. But this is with what 6 or 7 bars on the street being opened at the same time. So
no kidding. Wow.
Oh, yeah. There's all sorts of bars and restaurants on that street. So.
Now, are you guys going to be able to host like birthday ball celebrations and mess nights and those types of things at the tavern?
We will
at the Tun. Sorry.
We will do mess nights. I don't know that we could do. The biggest room that we have for seating a single group is probably about 60 people.
Mm-hmm.
The space is this.
Just more like unit level.
Yeah, I mean. Real estate in that section of the city is really expensive because it's the oldest section of the city. It's the most historic part. So we're sort of shoehorned into this space, but we do have a room that'll seat about 60 people.
Nice.
So mess nights would be a fun thing to do.
Mm-hmm.
Find all kinds of excuses to have parties there.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
Commissioning ceremonies, re-enlistment ceremonies. We even have a handshake agreement when the Marine Corps to put a recruiter in there. So
No kidding.
Oh,
yeah, not
wow.
full time, but a part-time recruiter for the Marine Corps will have an office there.
You know,
That's-
imagine that one recruiter, right?
Woo.
Yeah,
Well, where did you recruit? Oh, at the Ton. Yeah,
Yeah.
no big deal.
you
Yeah.
get a little certificate that says you were recruited at the Ton,
Oh, nice.
Wow.
or that retired from there, or that you re-enlisted,
Yeah,
whatever.
that is cool.
A lot of things we can do with this, but you
Yeah,
know,
absolutely.
I'm trying not to make it a Marine Corps museum. We have one of those in Quantico, and it's really, really good. But this is, you know, we're trying to recreate a mariner's tavern from the early 1700s. If you read it, if you really study the history of this place, it was, you know, it was like the internet of today. It was where you went to find news. It's where you
Right.
for
Right.
a meal.
Public house. Like
Yeah, truly, it was almost like a Ellis Island in a way. I mean, that's why so many groups used it as a fundraising for immigrants, because a lot of immigrants stepped off the boat there.
Right. Yeah.
It's very common in old newspapers in Philadelphia in the 1700s to say that if someone's looking for passage back to London, go see Captain Smith at the Tun Tavern.
Really?
He'll wait in there, and he leaves on Thursday. So,
Wow.
you could book passage almost anywhere in the world just by going there and negotiating with the ship captain who was hanging out at Tun Tavern. The gentleman who built the tavern originally, his name was Samuel Carpenter. He made his money in the sugar trade in Barbados, but he was a Quaker, so he didn't want to allow his men to join the militia to guard Barbados. Barbados was sort of like the crown jewel of the Caribbean. It had the best soil, the best weather for growing sugarcane, and England had a real taste for sugar. So it was really prolific at raising sugar. So the British were very careful not to let it fall into Spanish or French hands or Dutch hands. So they had their own militia there, and he would not let his workers join it because he was a Quaker. So
no kidding. Wow.
The other people on the island burned his warehouses a couple times and fined him about 7,000 tons of sugar. Think about that.
Wow.
That was the fine.
Holy cow.
It was the oil of its day. Sugar was a really valuable commodity.
Definitely.
And when he heard about William Penn starting this colony in North America where you could be a Quaker and not be, or any religion and not be persecuted, he, instead of going to jail, he said, how about if I cash out? And they all said good riddance. So he cashed out, and he brought his boat full of gold and came to Philadelphia. William Penn needed money. He had all this land and permission to sell it, but he didn't have any money to develop it. And Carpenter showed up with his cash right when Penn needed it.
Wow.
And so the two became very close friends. So there's a very, very, very good chance that William Penn also had a beer at the Tun because he liked beer. So,
well, who doesn't like beer? That's what I say.
It was Samuel Carpenter's brother Joshua was the gentleman who started Tun Tavern. He was the master brewer.
Oh, okay.
So so Carpenter, Samuel Carpenter built the first dock, the first pier into the Delaware River. Before then, you had to row out your rowboat to unload, the 15 or so ships arriving every day from Europe. You just had to unload them, a rowboat at a time. And Carpenter said, this is silly. He built a pier into the Delaware. And so ships could tie up there, unload their cargo onto the pier, and they built warehouses on the pier. So you could warehouse your things there. And he built a tavern at the end of the pier. And that was Tun Tavern.
That is awesome.
So, ships' crews would sleep in Tun Tavern, eat there. It was really the place. There's a lot of advertisements in newspapers from the early and mid 1700s. Other businesses giving their location in relation to Tun Tavern. It's very common. Yeah, like 3 doors down from Tun Tavern or a half a block from Tun Tavern. So
Wow.
It was really quite the place. So that's what we're trying to do is make all 6 organizations with a heritage at this tavern feel as though they, have come home to where they have their beginnings,
Right.
including Marine.
And now the 6 organizations, is the Navy was one, right?
Yeah, we have pretty good evidence that John Adams, who was later President John Adams, he was the head of the
Uh-huh.
the British Navy ships were going up and down the coast, particularly in New England, but as far south as New Jersey, and just firing on settlements that they thought were siding with the independence movement. And they would just burn these towns by just shelling them from their ships. And these people had no way to defend themselves. So the Continental Congress decided we need a small navy to at least, give some resistance to these boats and not make it so easy for them to do this. So they put John Adams in charge of the Naval Committee, and then they would meet after session for the Continental Congress. They rented a room, the second floor of Tun Tavern, and wrote the rules for the U.S. Navy there. So they actually designed the rules for the U.S. Navy. How many frigates they would buy, how many officers, even things like punishments, how many lashes of a whip, and offenses, and all that sort of thing was all done with a committee of about 6 or 7 people, I think.
Wow.
So they did it about 2.5 weeks, and that was passed by the Continental Congress. And then they are also tasked with raising 2 battalions of Marines.
Yeah.
And there we are.
Yeah. That is incredible. So the Navy, the Marine Corps, what was it?
Friendly
Freemasons.
Sons of St. Patrick.
Yeah, Sons of St. Patrick, and St. Andrew's Society. Is that all of them?
And the Society of St. George.
Oh, I missed one. Okay.
The
Society of St. George.
The 3 societies were there to help immigrants from those 3 countries, essentially Scotland, England, and Ireland, who were arriving in pretty much indigent. So that it helped them get started. And they still exist today, but they don't do that anymore. What they do now is fund scholarships for either people from those countries to come and study here, or people here to go and study there. So they are nonprofits. And the Masonic, the Freemasons fund Shriners hospitals, where if a child goes to Shriners hospitals, they don't pay for the care. That's all picked up by Freemasons. So it's good charities. The Masonic. There's a lot of Marines who are Freemasons, and in fact, the first 2 Marines were Freemasons.
Really?
Yeah, Samuel Nicholas and Robert Mullen. That's why they used Tun Tavern, because they were fraternity brothers.
Ah, that does make sense. Yeah.
So, yeah, it was just a natural fit. They knew each other very well, and they both owned taverns. But Mullen's tavern was right on the water, where they were building the ships that they needed Marines to man.
Right.
Nicholas's tavern was about 4.5 blocks inland. That doesn't sound like much, but that back then, that was sort of the edge of Philadelphia. It was wilderness.
Oh, wow.
Now it's in the middle of, it's still the old part of the city, but back then that was the edge of the development.
Yeah.
So
holy cow.
I think they probably didn't have too many people. They probably didn't know where that tavern was. Everyone knew where Tun Tavern was because it was so famous. So that's probably why they used it to recruit Marines. And the last thing I'll say about that is you often read about how they would get Marines drunk and sign on the dotted line here. In reading how they use Marines, I don't think that's the case at all. Back in those days, sailors were not the sailors of today. Sailors were often running from the law, or guys with a very checkered past, guys who, if they could kill the captains and the lieutenants of the ship, now they had a gunboat and they could be pirates and make some real money. So they needed a buffer between these guys who were running the ship and the guys who were commanding the ship, and they were the Marines.
Right.
So, back in those days, the laws of the sea were different. If you were at war with another nation, every ship that was under the flag of that nation was fair game. And if you got him to strike his colors and surrender, you owned that ship and everything on it. and you took it
Wow.
to court and you sold it and you shared that cash with your crew.
Yeah.
So it was legal piracy essentially. That's
Yeah.
how it got its start. Is when the wars ended, that's all these guys knew how to do was to attack other ships. So
Wow. I like that. This is great history for the Marine Corps, for the Navy. I mean, this is incredible. And everybody out there, in my humble opinion, all of our listeners, you may not have a lot of money. I don't have a lot of money all the time, but $17.75, I think everybody can contribute that. And like you were saying, if every Marine gave just $10, you'd have enough for the whole project.
We get it. Yep.
Yeah, so it's a couple of dollars more, maybe that buys a little extra beer at the end,
Yeah. No, it's all open book. I mean, our tax returns are public information. There's no funny business here. We're committed to do this. The question is, how fast can we do it?
Yeah. Now, your goal, correct me if I'm wrong, your goal is by 250th birthday of the Marine Corps to have it open. Is that correct?
That was our original goal.
Okay.
The approvals process to do what we're doing takes a while, and fundraising has not been as fast as I thought it would be.
Okay.
They're helping, but they're not helping as fast as we thought they might.
Yeah.
And it takes a while to get the word out to people. But so for us, 2025 is the magic number. For the Freemasons, it's 2030. Because in 2030,
okay.
Pennsylvania Freemasons turned 300 years old.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
Operating by 2030.
Okay.
They're helping quite a bit. I mean, they secured the land that we own.
Right.
Purchased that land with the Masonic help. So it's stuff like, we don't even necessarily need, if a wealthy person stepped up and guaranteed our loans, that would be enough. They wouldn't have to necessarily put the cash into our bank account, but there's other ways, there's creative financial ways. But yeah, if every Marine gave us $10, we'd be there.
Well, we're going to do what we can to help you guys out. I mean, I personally think what you guys do is incredible. I can't wait to come up there and, have a pint there at the Tun and just enjoy myself and see what you guys got going on there. It'll be absolutely incredible.
It's my instructions to the architect is make it look 300 years old the day it opens. So that's what we're driving. It's all
I love it.
Barn lumber and everything else. So
yeah.
No,
that's awesome.
It's be as authentic as we can make it. Here in Philly, you need to be, if you're calling something authentic, there are guys who come out and check your work. So you need to need to know what you're talking about. So we have a lot of historians working on this as well.
Yeah, very nice. Well, hey, real quick, the website itself is thetun.org. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And then on that website, for any of the listeners out there, you can go there. You can donate directly to the website. Like Pat was mentioning, you have the different cups or not cups. What am I trying to say? The beers. What is it?
It's a tankard, a stein.
Tankard, yeah. Yeah, and many different ways that you can help contribute to what they have going on. We are also going to start. I don't know how exactly we're going to do this. I got to get with you, Pat. Got to get with Sue, I guess, as well. I had a conversation with her earlier, but we want to be able to help contribute to this, and we're going to ask our listeners, and we'll try to fundraise. Like I said, $17.75, and we'll see where we can go with this. And who knows? Sky's the limit.
Yeah, no, and it'd be great to get some defense contractors, some corporate support. And we're not ashamed to put someone's name on the wall that says, made possible for the generous donation of Lockheed or whomever. The other thought I had is, if there's a plumbing contractor in California who would love to do the plumbing for this project, but it doesn't make sense to send his plumbers out here, just underwrite the contract. Give us the give us the money that the plumbing contract is written for. And then you become the plumber of record. So ways we can do this. But
I like that.
You don't need to be from Philly to participate in this, certainly.
Yeah, well, I mean, you can. I can imagine it's not just going to be people from Philly going to enjoy it.
No.
I know I am going to enjoy it at some point in time. That's for sure. So yeah, it's incredible. I'm looking forward to it.
It's also interesting because Philadelphia is now very aware of the ton. They
Yeah.
weren't before. They tell us that at Independence Hall, where around the Liberty Bell there, the second most asked questions after "Where's the bathroom?" is "Where's Tun Tavern?" So
No kidding.
Oh yeah, it's people that come and ask all the time, and so now we have an answer for them. So
yeah, absolutely, man, that's awesome. Well, hey, Pat, I want to thank you for coming on and sharing what you guys are doing. And we usually try to close out some of these with words of wisdom. So you can participate. You don't have to, but if you have words of wisdom that you want to impart on everyone, I'll give you a little bit of time here to figure it out. I have Mike go and then Mark. And then if you have anything that you want to say at the end, we'll go ahead and let you do that. It could be anything. It doesn't have to be words of wisdom. You can just one last sales pitch if you want to do that too. We can do that as well. But we'll start with Mike. Mike, what do you got? Words of wisdom. You got anything for us?
Hey, you kind of caught me on that one.
Yeah, well, you just joined us, so
Yeah, yeah. But what I actually got to hear actually was warming to my heart because Andrew and Mark, you don't know what it's like to be from the great state of Pennsylvania. You don't know. Born and raised. Yeah. Now, granted, I'm from Western Pennsylvania, so I'm a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. I'm not an Eagles fan.
Oh man, you're gonna get in a fisticuffs here in a second.
But the great state of Pennsylvania, I can't, just listen to this. I was like, oh man, listen to this. But no, it was something that I was reminded at my mom's funeral, talking with my dad's cousin, and he was just talking, but he said something, and then my daughter responded to it, and it's something that I've heard, we've all heard, but it's being nice and being kind doesn't cost you anything. Just
true.
Just be nice, just be kind, because you never know what anybody else is going through. So
yeah, that's a good point.
Sometimes it's just that kindness that can make somebody's day.
Yep.
Absolutely. Yeah, that was really good. That's good, Mike. Thanks. Appreciate it. All right, Mark. You still there?
All right. No, I'm still here.
All right.
So there's an old saying in the Marine Corps: to err is human, to forgive is divine. Neither of which is Marine Corps policy.
That's right. That many
so
times.
all Marines out there, you should be either donating $250 for the 250 years of our beloved Corps, or $17.75. But if you can't give that, you got to give something. But remember, no singles and no jingles.
Well, thank you.
That was good. That was really good, Mark. Was it no singles and no jingles? I like it.
Yeah.
All right, Pat. You wanna say one last thing or close us out with something here? What do you got?
Yeah, I mean, you talk to Marines, especially here in the Philly area. This has rebuilding the famous Tun Tavern has been attempted at least 5 times in the last 100 years that I'm aware of. And the most recent was in the 1990s. It only succeeded once, and that's when I think the Freemasons rebuilt it for the sesquicentennial, the 1925, what was that, 125th birthday of the U.S. So they built a wooden Tun Tavern, and they knocked it down within a year of building it. It was not a functioning tavern. It was out in the middle of a field. So it was an art museum more than anything, or an art gallery more than anything else. So, this is tried and failed 4 of the 5 times, but let's be the generation that gets it done. That we can be the legacy. We can be the Marines who get it done. Finally, we own the lands. We've never been closer than we are now to leaving something for the Marines that come behind us. So, we've all heard the saying, lead, follow, or get out of the way. Now is not the time to get out of the way. Now is the time to step up and help us do this. I'm not getting rich off of this. Nobody on the board is getting rich off of this. A lot of people have donated a significant amount of cash, myself included, but others, even more than me. And it's just, and I'm not a wealthy guy, so, but we've made it so all of us can contribute to do this, and let's be the generation of Marines that get it done.
Absolutely, man. Couldn't say it better myself. That was great. Hey, Pat, thanks for coming on. Thanks for sharing with us. The Tun.org. Man, you guys are doing some great things. I'm excited about this. And we are going to do our damnedest to try and get you some cash flow in there. And we'll put something up on our website and put it out on the podcast. I'll mention it every time on the podcast. The donation is $17.75. And then we'll just kind of see where it goes from there. Hopefully we can help you out quite a bit, but we'll see.
General Livingston was here on November 10th. He said, let's get this damn thing built. And, big hoorah from the crowds. And, I was talking to the general contractor today. He said, we need to get this done because I got threatened by a Marine when he was here. Like, God,
I love it.
Back next year. So there will be something standing there by November 10th next year. It won't be the finished product, but you'll recognize it. And
very nice.
And hopefully we'll get it done shortly thereafter.
Yeah, absolutely. Awesome. Well, Hey, once again, Pat, I appreciate you. Mark, thank you. Mike, thank you. Thanks for coming on. As usual, you guys rock. But to all the listeners out there, if you're struggling, you need help, anything like that, don't forget the VA does have some great resources. You can always reach out to them, dial 988, press option 1. You can text 838-255, or you can go to veteranscrisisline.net and click on the chat icon. Any of those options are going to put you in contact with somebody that can help you out. But remember, one veteran life lost is one too many. I care about you. Pat cares about you. Mark, Mike, they all care about you. The whole veteran community. So please reach out for help. And if you're out there, you're not struggling, reach out to the buddies that you serve with and ask them how they're doing. And if they need that helping hand, please do so. All right, Pat, one last time. Mark, Mike, you guys rock. To all the listeners, stay motivated, change your socks.